stop everything you're doing. Not just metaphorically, literally. Stop reading, stop scrolling, stop running on the treadmill of daily existence. Because what you're about to encounter is not just information, it's remembrance. And if it lands, it won't just change how you think, it will change who you are. Have you ever felt it? That nagging sense that life doesn't quite make sense. Like there's a page missing from the manual of your existence. You're here, you're breathing, you're aging, you're trying, but deep inside, it's as if someone erased a crucial part of the story. You are not wrong. The page was taken. There exists a book written more than 1,200 years ago, so spiritually volatile that it was erased from history. Not by accident, but because it contains a truth that, if remembered, would make you untouchable, uncontrollable, free. They called it the Codex Animae, the Codex of the Soul, an ancient manuscript passed between mystics and visionaries in shadowed monasteries and desert sanctuaries, hidden from public knowledge by those who feared what it revealed. Because this book does something terrifying to systems of control, it tells you that you chose this life. You chose your pain, your body, your family, your failures, and your mission. This book reveals that before you were born, your soul underwent a sacred process, 7 distinct spiritual stages. And through those stages, you designed the architecture of your incarnation down to the finest detail. You wrote the script. Then you forgot. And the forgetting was part of the plan. Imagine this. You're an actor in a play so immersive you forgot you were acting. The lights are real, the wounds bleed, the fears feel like death. But backstage, behind the veil, you are immortal. You are aware. You are free. The book is the map back to that awareness. And why has no one told you this before? Because if you remembered, you wouldn't obey out of fear. You wouldn't beg for salvation. You wouldn't hand your power to churches, corporations, or states. You would awaken the divine architect sleeping inside you. That is the spiritual emergency we're in. Not just ecological, not just political, existential. Most people are sleepwalking through a life they chose, feeling like victims of circumstances they designed. Here's what one ancient mystic wrote in the margins of a surviving page of the Codex. To forget is the price of the game, but to remember is the beginning of liberation. So if you've ever wondered, why was I born into this family? Why do I keep facing the same struggles? Why do I feel like I came here to do something important, but I don't know what it is? The answer is not in psychology, not in self-help books, not even in most religious texts. The answer is in the stages your soul passed through before you were born, each one shaping the blueprint of your incarnation, each one a thread in the tapestry of your destiny, each one an echo that still whispers in your dreams, your instincts, your gut feelings you've been taught to ignore. Let me make this personal. Picture a child born into violence, poverty, neglect. The world looks at them and says, unlucky, unwanted, unloved. But what if that child is a master soul? What if they chose this brutal environment not as punishment, but as training? What if they are here to end generational pain, and it had to begin like this? What if the darkness was not a mistake, but a stage light waiting to reveal their strength. That child could be you. But here's the tension. If your soul chose all of this, then you're not a victim. You're a volunteer. And if that's true, then your suffering isn't random. It's ritual. Your failures aren't curses. They're initiations. Your regrets aren't mistakes. They're milestones on the map. And this map, the 7 sacred stages, is what you're about to discover. Each stage will challenge you. Each one carries a code your soul planted for you to remember when the time was right. That time might be now. But I must warn you. Once you see the map, you can't unsee it. Once you remember, you can't pretend to be asleep. So the only question left is, are you ready to wake up? In the next section, we'll begin at the true beginning. Not your birth, but the moment your soul heard the call. The first sacred stage, where everything, your mission, your pain, your freedom, begins. Before there was breath, there was the call. Before you had a name, a face, a heartbeat, there was a moment of stillness in the vastness of the unseen. And in that stillness, a vibration moved through eternity. Not a voice, not a command, a summons, a song, the call. In the teachings preserved within the Codex Animae, the soul's journey begins not with the body, but with the echo of a higher intelligence, what mystics call the universal source. This is not God in the image of man, but a frequency, an all-pervading intelligence that holds the structure of all realities. The call is not mandatory, it is magnetic. It doesn't say, you must go. It whispers, it is time. Time to descend. Time to return to the sacred labyrinth of the human experience. Time to grow, stretch, suffer, remember. You have heard this call before. In fact, you may be hearing it again right now. It speaks in the pauses between your thoughts, in the ache you feel when looking into a stranger's eyes, in the inexplicable longing that surges in your chest when the wind hits just right, or when a child's laugh brings you to tears and you don't know why. That is the call echoing across lifetimes. It is the moment the infinite soul feels a sacred itch. I am ready to forget again, so that I might remember more deeply than ever before. The soul is drawn to matter, not out of punishment, but out of hunger for transformation. Unknown hermetic fragment. This hunger is the beginning of all journeys, and you are not alone in feeling it. Think of the call like gravity for the spirit. Just as the earth pulls objects downward, the universal source draws souls inward, into embodiment, into flesh, into challenge. It is not masochism, it is mastery in progress. The soul in this moment still floats in freedom. No body, no story, no trauma, only clarity. And yet it chooses limitation. Why? Because evolution does not happen in stillness. It happens in friction. Imagine this. A great actor stands on the edge of a stage, knowing the role is difficult, dark, even tragic, but also knowing that through it, something eternal will shine. The soul is that actor. Incarnation is the performance. Earth is the theater. And here's the mystery. Only some souls respond to the call. Many hear it and remain where they are, content to rest, reflect, remain in subtle dimensions. But others, like you, accept, not out of arrogance, but out of love. If you are hearing this now, says one translation of the Codex, then your soul once said yes. It accepted the invitation to remember by first choosing to forget. This choice, the yes, is what begins the 7-stage preparation for incarnation. Once the call is heard and accepted, the soul does not fall. It descends with purpose. Like a diver holding their breath, knowing the darkness is part of the return to light. Let's take a moment here. Ask yourself, not logically, but intuitively, have you ever felt that this world is not quite your home? That something about your presence here is deliberate but obscured? That your life contains an unspoken assignment? That's not your imagination, that's your memory surfacing. The veil hasn't completely silenced the call. You've just been taught to mistrust it. In childhood, it might have shown up as dreams you couldn't explain. In adolescence, as restlessness or rebellion. In adulthood, as spiritual hunger, depression, or dissatisfaction with the ordinary. The call is persistent, because it's not trying to recruit you. It's trying to remind you. Real-world example. There are countless people who report sudden moments of overwhelming emotion in the most mundane places, like crying uncontrollably in a grocery store after hearing a piece of music, or having a wave of déjà vu crash over them while watching sunlight filter through leaves. These moments don't make sense to the rational mind, but they don't come from the mind. They come from before it. That's how the call speaks. Not with words, but with resonance. If something in this section is making your skin tingle, your heart race, or your tears rise, you are remembering. You are not broken. You are not late. You are not behind. You are responding. And now, something is awakening. Because the moment you consciously recognize the call, your soul begins to shift. The map opens. But this is only the beginning. The call may start the journey, but before you could be born, your soul had to do something that even the gods revere. It had to look into its past and face itself without flinching. Stage 2. The life review. It is not judgment, it is revelation. After the call comes the mirror. The soul has heard the invitation. It has accepted. But before it can step forward into a new life, it must first look back. Completely. Honestly. Lovingly. This is the life review. According to the Codex Animae, this second stage is not a punishment, it is a purification. Before the soul can descend, it must understand the imprint it left behind. Every ripple, every wound, every kindness, every silence. There is no condemnation, there is only reflection. Fragment from the Codex, translated by G. Lamos, 1892. And this reflection isn't passive, it's immersive. You don't just see your life like a movie projected onto a wall. You feel it. Everything. If you caused suffering, you feel it through the one you hurt. If you brought healing, you feel the expansion in the other's heart. If you were indifferent, you feel the ache of being unseen. Not from judgment, but from connection. The soul re-experiences its own life as the other. This is not divine punishment, it's cosmic empathy. Imagine standing in a room of pure light, and the room fills with moments. Moments you forgot. Moments you dismissed. Moments you never knew mattered, but did. Because someone else carried them. This is the soul's great classroom. And in it, you begin to understand. Your actions were never isolated. Every choice was a thread in the web of human consciousness. But here's the part most people never hear about. After the life review, your soul doesn't just sit in shame or pride. It chooses what's next. And that choice becomes the foundation of your soul contracts. Soul contracts are sacred agreements. Before being born, your soul meets with others, beings it has known across lifetimes, and you plan, together, in full awareness. You ask, what do I still need to learn? What patterns am I still repeating? What strengths do I wish to develop through resistance? And from those questions, a tapestry is woven. Not just who you will be, but who will challenge you, who will love you, who will leave you. Yes, even betrayal can be part of the contract, because some souls love you enough to hurt you, if that pain will break you open to your next level. Let that land. Some of the greatest enemies in your life are allies in spirit, playing roles you asked them to play. Gnostic commentary on pre-incarnational pacts. This teaching shatters the victim-perpetrator narrative, not to dismiss trauma, but to elevate it into a place of purpose. Real-world example. Many people have forgiven lifelong pain, not by condoning the act, but by seeing the soul behind it. A woman abandoned by her father discovers, during a deep spiritual regression, that she and he made a pact. He would abandon her so that she would learn self-worth through overcoming it. That realization doesn't erase the pain, but it rewrites the story. Suddenly, she's not cursed. She is on track. This is what soul contracts do. They remove randomness. They restore meaning. And no, not everything is pre-written. You still have free will. You can break contracts. You can rewrite them. But understanding that they exist gives you a compass, a reference point. You are not wandering through life lost. You are navigating a design of your own creation. Let's pause. Ask yourself, who in my life has challenged me the most? What lesson might I be refusing to learn? What pattern keeps repeating, and what deeper truth is trying to get my attention? These aren't rhetorical. They're sacred entry points. They open the map. Because after your soul completes the review and finalizes its contracts, there is still one more thing to decide. The blueprint of your next life. Who you'll be. What you'll look like. What body you'll enter. What bloodline you'll carry. What mission you'll accept. You might think that's random, but you're about to learn otherwise. In the next stage, your soul will choose more than just a destination. It will choose a vessel. And in doing so, it will embed clues, genetic, emotional, historical, that point back to its mission. What if your body isn't just skin and cells, but a key? A language your soul designed to speak its truth? That's what happens in stage 3, the Council of Souls. And your presence there will reshape everything you thought about family, destiny, and your very flesh. Imagine a room that doesn't exist in space, but in consciousness. Silent, radiant, without walls or shadows. This is the place where your soul once stood. Not alone, surrounded. This is the Council of Souls, a sacred circle of wise beings, guides, elders, and soul companions who know you beyond identity, beyond ego, beyond incarnation. Their presence isn't forceful, but total. They remember every lifetime you've ever lived, every lesson you've completed, every wound still echoing. And now, in this chamber of pure awareness, they help you prepare for the next descent. They do not judge, they do not command. They remember what you forgot. Codex Fragment, interpreted through clairvoyant regression research. This is not mythology. Reports of soul councils appear in countless near-death experiences, past life regressions, and shamanic journeys across traditions, from Tibet to the Andes to modern hypnotherapists like Michael Newton and Dolores Cannon. The pattern is always the same: a spiritual tribunal, not of judges, but of mentors. The soul doesn't get told what to do. It co-creates the path ahead. Here's how it happens. You arrive after your life review, full of clarity and emotional truth. You carry the imprint of every choice, every impact, and every unresolved thread. And together, with this council, you design your next incarnation. They ask, what do you still need to understand? Where are you most afraid to go? What strengths have not yet been tested in fire? The council doesn't flatter you. They reflect you, purely, without distortion. And in that reflection, your real purpose starts to take shape, not as a job title, but as a lesson plan for the soul. Example, a soul may feel called to learn forgiveness, not as a concept, but as lived experience. So it chooses to incarnate into a family system of betrayal or abandonment, not out of masochism, but precision. It designs the exact constellation of people, timing, and culture that will trigger the wound it came to transform. This is the sacred paradox. You choose what will break you, because you know it's the only way to awaken. Yes, even your enemies are on the guest list. The Codex and many esoteric teachings suggest that opposing forces in life, betrayers, oppressors, heartbreakers, may be souls who love you enough to challenge you. In the eyes of eternity, there are no enemies, only collaborators wearing masks. Hermetic Gospel, Book of Inner Doors. Let that unsettle you, because it should. Spiritual truth often does, but let it also empower you. If the pain in your life has context, it doesn't mean it's easy, but it means it's not meaningless. Now, within this council, other contracts are discussed. Who will be your allies? Who will mirror your blind spots? What soul groups will you rejoin to complete shared missions? Even major turning points, near-death experiences, career upheavals, seemingly random chance meetings are often preloaded into the blueprint. The council helps you program signposts into your life. These are moments designed to wake you up, to shake your memory, to whisper, "This is why you came." Have you ever had that feeling? A moment so charged, so uncanny, it felt like déjà vu, yet deeper. A person you met and instantly trusted or feared for no rational reason. These are the echoes of soul agreements made long before you had a name. Visualize it. The council table. You are there, luminous, free, eternal. You nod as roles are assigned. You speak names aloud. those you will meet again. Some with love, some with fire, some with silence. You agree because you know. And then your soul begins the descent. But not before one final choice. You have chosen your lessons. Now you must choose your instrument. Because every soul mission requires a vessel. The next stage is not symbolic. It's biological. You choose your body, your family, your genetic codes. Not for comfort, but for compatibility with the mission. In stage 4, you'll remember why you look the way you do, why you were born into that exact lineage, why your deepest physical vulnerabilities are not flaws, but keys. You'll see how the soul designs the self, and you'll never look at your reflection the same way again. You didn't end up in this body by accident, and you weren't placed in your family like a puzzle piece jammed into the wrong box. Your soul chose all of it. Not just the outline of your personality, but the flesh, the features, the lineage, the trauma, the time and place of your arrival. In the Codex Animae, this 4th stage is called the Embodiment design, the stage where the soul becomes an architect of incarnation, selecting the precise material circumstances it needs to fulfill its mission. Why would a soul choose pain? Why would a soul choose poverty, or illness, or rejection? Not because it seeks punishment, because it seeks pressure. Pressure creates diamonds, and the soul knows it must descend into darkness, not to suffer, but to ignite. The soul does not choose ease, it chooses precision. Extracted from a 13th century Gnostic fragment aligned with the Codex. This stage is among the most misunderstood in all spiritual literature. Modern spirituality often celebrates transcendence, light, escape. But the true mystic knows, embodiment is the crucible. Let's break it down. You chose your family system, not just as context, but as curriculum. If you came to learn forgiveness, you may have chosen betrayal. If you came to develop strength, you may have chosen neglect. Your physical body, with all its genetic predispositions, appearance, strengths, and weaknesses. Your height, your skin, your voice, your disabilities or advantages, none of these are incidental. They are symbolic tools. Your historical timing, the exact century, nation, and cultural matrix that would press the right buttons in your growth path. Real-world example. A man born into a lineage of silence, where men do not speak of emotion, spends his life suffering from chronic throat issues. Later, through deep regression and energy healing, he uncovers that his soul chose this lineage to break the generational curse of repression. The pain wasn't punishment. It was his initiation into voice. This is how the soul works. It hides the answers inside the problem. Your greatest pain contains your precise medicine. Let's go further. Your body is not just a shell. It is a code. Every part of your physical form was selected, not for aesthetics, but for function. For example, a sensitive nervous system may have been chosen by a soul tasked with developing energetic empathy. A chronic illness may serve as a tether, slowing you down, forcing you inward, initiating reflection where the ego wanted motion. You are not in your body. You are your body, as your soul imagined it. Codex Animae, Discourse 4. Now pause. Look at your life. What physical challenges have defined your path? What emotional wounds trace back to family? What unspoken tension exists between who you are and where you came from? These are not coincidences. They are signposts. The soul does not gamble. It engineers. Even your name might carry vibrational significance, something your soul whispered into the hearts of those who named you. And what about your purpose? In this stage, the soul does not just pick a body and family. It aligns all of that to a core mission. But purpose is often misunderstood. It is not a job. It is not a passion. It is not even helping others, though it may include that. Purpose is the specific lesson your soul came here to master and radiate. And that lesson usually shows up in your life first as a wound. You want to know your purpose? Ask, what has hurt you most? What breaks your heart again and again? What do you still carry? That's where your light is buried. Think of your body like a musical instrument. Your soul selected a cello, not a flute. It chose the tone, the resonance, the depth. It picked the orchestra pit you would be born into. Who else would be playing with you in dissonance or harmony? And now, here you are. You've been handed this instrument, this body, this family, this world, and the music is waiting. But there's one final veil you must pass through. Because if you remembered everything, every pact, every purpose, you wouldn't really be playing the game. You'd just be reciting your lines. So the soul, brave and brilliant, does something extraordinary. It chooses to forget, not as a mistake, as a ritual. That forgetting is what makes this life real. The veil is not a curse. It is the beginning of your most sacred quest. And that quest begins in stage 5, the Veil of Forgetfulness. It is not made of wood or stone, not guarded by angels or demons. It is made of mist, soft, dense, luminous. And as your soul approaches it, everything you've remembered begins to blur. This is the Veil of Forgetfulness, and passing through it is the cost of being born. The Codex calls this moment the Great Disappearance, not because your soul dies, but because everything it knows is gently buried beneath layers of human experience, language, identity, culture, trauma, belief. You forget not only where you came from, but what you are. To become human, the soul must forget its own fire. But the fire remains. Codex Animae, Passage 9. The forgetting is not punishment. It is structure. A sacred constraint that gives life its weight, its tension, its urgency. Because without the veil, there would be no mystery. Without mystery, no seeking. Without seeking, no transformation. Think of it this way. You're an actor in the most immersive role imaginable. But instead of wearing a costume, you become the character. And part of the agreement is, you won't remember your acting until the moment the script demands it. That moment, when something deep inside begins to stir, and you feel the whisper, "There's more to me than this." That's the veil beginning to thin. The veil makes everything feel real. Pain, loss, time. Without it, life would be a lucid dream, obvious, unchallenging, sterile. But through the veil, even temporary illusions feel eternal. The stakes feel real. That's what gives your choices their sacred weight. And yet, the veil is not perfect. Cracks exist, and through those cracks, memory seeps. A dream that leaves you shaken, not with fear, but recognition. A child who speaks of lives they never lived. A piece of music that makes you sob, though you've never heard it before. These are not glitches. They're invitations. They are how the soul tries to remind the human of what it once chose to forget. Real-world example. Dr. Ian Stevenson documented hundreds of children who recalled accurate, verifiable details of past lives they could not have known. One child in Lebanon insisted he had been a mechanic in a nearby village. He remembered the garage, the tools, even the cause of his death. When investigated, every detail checked out. How does that happen? It happens when the veil, thinner in youth or near death or under deep trauma, lifts just enough for truth to leak through. The veil was stitched with time and silence, but memory is more ancient than forgetting. Hermetic addendum to the Codex, recovered 1873. So how do you begin to remember? Not by force, not by analysis, but by stillness. The modern world is engineered to thicken the veil. Noise, speed, distraction. You're pulled out of yourself at every moment, into screens, into fear, into endless survival mode. But when you stop, when you sit in silence long enough to hear your own breath as sacred, the first tear appears. Meditation, journaling, deep rest. These are not luxuries. They are tools of re-entry, because the soul is always trying to reach you. It doesn't shout, it waits. A metaphor. Think of a seed buried underground. It doesn't forget it's a tree. It just can't act like one until it breaks the surface. Your soul is that seed, and remembering is the light that coaxes it upward. So let's ask the essential question. What have you forgotten about yourself? And what would your life become if you started to remember? Would you still carry shame about your past? Would you still see your trauma as meaningless? Would you still treat your life as random, your choices as accidents? Or would you begin to live with intention, with reverence, with the quiet power of someone who knows, I chose this. I just don't remember why yet. The veil exists to humble you, but it also exists to empower you once you begin to tear through it, because behind that veil lies your soul's most courageous act. Not just planning a life, not just forgetting that plan, but jumping into the fire of birth itself, with no guarantees, no certainty, and no conscious memory. The next stage isn't mystical, it's brutal, it's sacred, it's birth. And in the language of the Codex, it is known as the leap of faith. That's where we go next. There is no greater act of courage in the universe than birth. Not as a biological event, but as a spiritual decision. Because when your soul stepped through the final layer of the veil, it did something unimaginable. It leapt into pain, into limitation, into you. The Codex Animae calls this final stage of pre-incarnation the leap of faith, a descent from the formless into the finite, from omniscience into amnesia, from boundless light into a fragile, screaming body. And the soul cast itself downward, not to fall, but to ignite. Codex Animae, final gate. This is what birth really is. Not a beginning, but a continuation of a sacred choice made in realms beyond matter. It is the moment when your soul takes all the contracts, all the planning, all the preparation, and trusts that even without memory, you'll remember. Trusts that even in darkness, you'll seek the light. Trusts that even in pain, you'll find meaning. You didn't just arrive, you dived. Imagine that. Imagine choosing to enter a world where you would be helpless for years, where you would forget your name, your purpose, your identity as a soul, where you would be shaped by people who had also forgotten, where you might be hurt, misunderstood, rejected. And you said, yes. Why? Because you knew something most people never remember. That growth doesn't happen in perfection. It happens in friction, in entropy, in death and rebirth and mistake and grace. You came to get dirty, to love and bleed and struggle and learn. You came to feel everything, not from the outside, but from within skin, bone, heart, and time, a real-world image. Think of a skydiver stepping out of a plane, the wind roaring, the ground rushing up. Now imagine the skydiver has no parachute, only trust. That's what your soul did. Not as a suicide mission, but as a resurrection plan. Because it's only in the fall that flight becomes possible. Birth is the soul's most holy forgetting. The body is the tomb and the temple. Hermetic Psalms, Codex Addendum. And this forgetting is not just metaphorical. From the moment of physical birth, your biology begins conditioning you. Your brain prunes its connections. Your senses lock onto survival patterns. You learn separation. You learn fear. You learn self. But behind all of that, the truth waits. In early childhood, the veil is still thin. Have you noticed? Children speak of invisible friends, past lives, strange memories. They play with the unseen. They ask questions that collapse adults into silence because they remember, for a time. And then, the world begins to shape them. Language replaces intuition. Obedience replaces wonder. Fear replaces awe. The leap of faith is not just the jump into life. It is the choice to reawaken while still inside it. That's the real test, because anyone can awaken on the other side, after death, in dreams, in visions. But to awaken here, with all the weight of a human story on your shoulders, that is divine rebellion. So take a moment, breathe, really. Feel your chest rise. That breath, that is your soul saying, I'm still here. You have already made the leap. You are in the body. You are in the story. But the map remains. Not outside you, in churches, temples, or systems. Inside, in your longings, in your repeated lessons, in your unexplainable love for certain people, places, or paths. The Codex was never just a book. It is a blueprint, and your soul is following it, whether you realize it or not. And yet, there's one question still unanswered, the hardest one. Why was all this hidden from you? Why was this map buried, these truths obscured, your own soul's voice muffled? Why were you born into systems that taught you to fear your own inner knowing? Because if everyone remembered, the world would change overnight. And that's exactly what some forces have worked to prevent. Along the video, we will expose that resistance, spiritual, cultural, historical. You'll see why conscious souls have always been silenced, and why, right now, you're beginning to wake up anyway. Now that you're remembering, ask yourself this. Why were you never told? Why did no one mention the 7 stages your soul passed through before you were born? Why, after thousands of hours in classrooms, pews, and therapy, has no one shown you the architecture of your own incarnation? Because it was hidden, not by accident, by design. The Codex Animae, this 1,200-year-old manuscript that describes the soul's pre-birth journey, wasn't just forgotten. It was erased, suppressed by the very institutions that claimed to guard your truth. That which gives man power to stand alone is always first declared dangerous. Hermetic Rulebook, line 11. And what does this hidden power threaten? Control. Because a human being who remembers they chose their life cannot be manipulated by guilt. They cannot be pacified by shame. They do not obey blindly. They ask why. They listen inward. They stop handing over their authority to systems that feed on fear. Let's be clear. If you fully embody the truth that your soul chose this incarnation, everything changes. Suffering becomes initiation. Failure becomes refinement. Oppression becomes a teacher. You become the architect of your becoming. This is not good for systems built on obedience. Governments, religions, even corporations all benefit when you feel small, lost, disconnected from source. Because a person who doesn't know they are eternal is easy to scare. And a scared person buys, obeys, submits. Real-world example. Throughout history, mystics who taught these truths about soul planning, the illusion of death, the divine origin of self, were often silenced. Hypatia of Alexandria was murdered. The Cathars were exterminated. Sufi poets were exiled or executed. Indigenous shamans were colonized, sterilized, or forced into silence. Their crime? Teaching that the divine lives within, not above. Imagine your soul is a lion, drugged since birth into believing it's a house cat. Every instinct redirected towards safety and approval. Until one day, something stirs. A memory, a scent, a dream, and suddenly the cage doesn't make sense anymore. That's where you are now. The bars are still visible, but they're optional, because the great danger has already occurred. From the system's perspective, you've started to question. You've begun to feel it. That your pain isn't random. That your instincts aren't delusions. That your longing is not weakness, it's memory. You are remembering your divine architecture in a world that depends on your amnesia. And that means you're becoming dangerous, not violent, but sovereign. Let's return to the veil. Why is the veil reinforced after birth? Through education systems that reward memorization over intuition, through media that sells pleasure instead of purpose, through religious doctrines that locate power outside of you, on altars, in books, in sky gods. Each of these serves to anchor you in forgetfulness, to distract you from the quiet hum of your own soul. The soul does not shout. It waits to be heard beneath the noise. Codex Animae, line 84. But here's the turning point. No force in the world, no empire, no institution, no trauma can permanently silence a soul that wants to awaken. And yours does. That's why you're here. Maybe you've felt the pressure intensify lately. Patterns repeating, dreams getting louder, emotions surfacing that seem older than this life. That's not breakdown. That's rupture. The soul pushing through the wall of programming. The system has conditioned you to interpret awakening as disorder. So when you start to remember, it tells you you're crazy, that your dreams are meaningless, that your inner voice is dangerous. But what if the voice inside you is the only one telling the truth? What if that pressure in your chest is not anxiety, but alignment screaming to be recognized? This is what rising tension feels like, on a soul level. The moment where the illusion becomes unbearable, where you can't go back, but don't yet know how to go forward. And that's exactly where transformation happens. So what's the risk if you ignore this? You fall back asleep. You return to the loop, repeating lessons you already agreed to transcend. But if you lean in, if you remember, everything you've carried will begin to make sense. Your pain will become sacred. Your confusion will become a compass, and your life will begin to move with the gravity of purpose. In the final section, you'll learn how to make this awakening real, how to begin tearing the veil, decoding the signs, remembering what your soul wrote into your story. Because awakening isn't a light switch, it's a process, and yours has already begun. You're not just waking up, you're returning to something ancient, something you never truly lost, only agreed to forget. Because deep beneath your stories, traumas, goals, and fears, there is a memory. And it is sacred. The soul does not need to learn. It needs only to remember. Codex Animae, final passage. Now comes the most important part of all. How to remember. Not intellectually, not as trivia, but viscerally, experientially, in your breath, your choices, your being. You won't remember everything at once. That's not how the veil works. But you can begin to create the conditions in which memory blooms. Like seeds waiting beneath the surface, your soul's blueprint stirs with light, silence, intention. Step 1. Embrace the signs. Start paying attention to what repeats, certain numbers, songs that seem to follow you, dreams that wake you at 3:33 a.m., conversations that seem scripted. These are not quirks, they are soul echoes, breadcrumbs scattered through time to lead you back. Your soul planted them for you. Step 2. Rewrite the story of pain. Go back to your deepest wound, not to relive it, but to reframe it. Ask, what did this teach me that ease never could? What strength did I build through this rupture? What would it mean if I had chosen this as a catalyst? When you shift from, why did this happen to me, to what did I plan to learn through this, you shift from victim to architect. Real-world example. A woman devastated by a decade of infertility reframes her grief. Instead of seeing her body as broken, she begins exploring soul agreements and ancestral healing. She realizes her mission isn't to mother biologically, but to birth healing in other women through ritual and writing. Her pain was not pointless. It was directive. Step 3. Return to stillness. Modern life has weaponized noise, but silence is where memory waits. Sit. Just sit. Even for 10 minutes. Let your breath become your teacher. Let your thoughts pass. like birds across a sky. Eventually, something deeper will speak, not in words, but in knowing. This is where the veil thins. The first veil is torn not by force, but by stillness. Codex Animae, Meditation, Sequence 1. Step 4. Work with dreams. Your dreams are not random. They are your soul's native language, symbolic, emotional, non-linear. Start keeping a dream journal. Each image, no matter how bizarre, contains coded memory. Recurring places, past life echoes, recurring people, soul contracts in action. Ask your soul before sleep, show me what I planned to forget. Then listen. Step 5. Follow intuition, not logic. Intuition is remembering disguised as impulse. It is the soul's GPS, subtle, sacred, persistent. When you feel a pull toward someone, something, some unknown yes, follow it, even if it makes no sense. Especially then. Logic is what got you lost. Intuition is how you come home. Step 6. Speak the affirmations of truth. Your words are spells, and each one can activate memory. Speak these aloud. I am more than this moment. I chose this path to awaken. My soul remembers what my mind forgot. I trust what stirs within me. I am ready to realign with my design. Not because the words are magic, but because you are. Step 7. Walk with courage. To remember is to live differently. You will lose people. You will shed false identities. You will challenge every fear-based system you were raised in. This is not comfort. This is initiation, but you will gain something far greater. Clarity, resonance, power that no one can give or take away. You will walk not as someone seeking worth, but as someone revealing it. Final visualization. Close your eyes. Picture your soul before birth, vast, luminous, surrounded by the council. See yourself stepping through the veil. Feel the body wrap around you like a coat. Hear the cry. Smell the air. Touch the world. Now whisper to yourself, I remember. I chose this. I will awaken within it. And let that echo through your cells like a tuning fork struck on eternity. This is not the end. This is the re-entry. You've begun the most radical act a soul can attempt, to awaken inside the dream, to become lucid in the illusion, to live your purpose with eyes wide open. And now the only question left is, what will you do with what you've remembered? If this ancient knowledge shook something in you, good. That means you're starting to remember. But don't stop here. Subscribe now, because this is just one page from a book they never wanted you to read. We're decoding the entire thing, one hidden truth at a time.